make me proud. Don't never back up, don't never back down. Stand your ground and always tell it like it is. Yeah, this life's gonna be real damn tough. You take them scars and you call that bluff. Don't let me catch you fitting in, 'cause everyone's an outlaw until it's time to do outlaw shit.
Welcome to Outlaw Entrepreneur Podcast, where doing business at the edge is the status quo, and average is out of business. Here's your host, Steve Houk.
Good morning, and welcome to the first live episode of the Outlaw Entrepreneur. We'll see if we can get some comments going from Facebook. Want to welcome my guest this morning, Mr. Gavin. We shared the Mattress Minds group for a little while, and Gavin is probably one of the most aggressive people in the business, I think, in the last few years anyway. Opening, got 3 stores, 4 stores, been in business. How long, Gavin?
Just over 2 years. Good morning. Yeah, super excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
So 2 years, 4 stores. I've been in the
working
business.
On the 4th. We're going to be opening here very shortly. So very excited.
I've been in the business now 8 years, 2 stores, and I still question the second store. So to jump right into it, Gavin, tell us a little bit about your background, man. What got you into the retail biz?
Yeah, so I love the Outlaw Entrepreneur, brand that you have going. Kind of always seen myself as an entrepreneur. My dad had his own business growing up, and I worked in that since diapers, and kind of lived and breathed running my own business. And then, out of high school wasn't really for me. I tried the college thing, it really wasn't much. And I said, man, I got to do one of two things. I either get into the military where I can get some discipline, or I need to start making money. And I said, you know what, let me try the money thing first. Seems like there's a lot out there. So I've tried a bunch of different things. I've worked for different people. But to get into retail, I was actually living in New York City. I was a bartender, server at a very exclusive 5-star restaurant, and working with a lot of celebrities and whatnot. And my dad, the guy who, got me into wanting to be an entrepreneur, he got very ill. He was in ICU for a long time. And so I moved back from New York City back to Florida. And a buddy of mine at the time was working for a furniture retailer. And he's like, dude, you're aggressive. He's like, you're aggressive on the soccer field. You talk fast. You're just really aggressive. Like, I think you could do sales. I was like, oh, buddy, I can do sales. Don't worry about that. So he brought me in to be a salesman. And over that next 10 years, I worked for one of the largest furniture retailers around. And I worked my way all the way up to sales director of the company. So I've worked every position on the retail side, and decided at some point, it was my turn to actually have my own. And about 2 years ago, my business partner and I decided to step away from that company and then open our own. And we started with the one location, like every person does. But we quickly analyzed that there is ways to expand and grow your business, because one thing that I've taken from my father was, you're either going to stay small or you're going to have to get really big. There's no middle of the road when it comes to owning your own business. That's where businesses go to die. So you have to make that decision whether it's time to grow or it's time to stay the same. And it's okay by staying small, making tons of margin and profit, or you have to say, hey, look, we're going to grow and we're going to make this thing, a multi $1 million company, and we're going to sell it in 10, 15 years. So that's a decision we made pretty quickly into opening our furniture chain, Legacy Furniture Mattress.
So did you open with the idea? You just said sell in 10 to 15 years.
Yes.
So is that the end goal?
Yeah, of course. I mean, any business owner, you have to have some type of exit strategy. I mean, if you're going into a business to create a job for yourself, you're going to struggle. It's going to be difficult for you to grow your business. It's going to be difficult for you to take yourself out of the business. Businesses in general, when they get successful on a small scale or even a big scale, they have to be automated in some way to where you can take yourself out of it. So when we started, we originally looked at, okay, how big can we get in X time? And at that point, when and how do we sell? And so that was our exit strategy, is in the next 10 to 15 years, either bring in someone larger that can help us expand even further. So in the 10 to 15 year term, we want to be around 40 to 50 locations. And at that point, when we take it from 40 to 50, we're going to need huge capital and a lot of help for the growth. And so typically companies at that point will have to bring in an investor, which you're going to obviously have to sell a lot of equity. So step one of exit is selling equity for growth. And then step two is going to be to sell the entire company. So hopefully by year 15 to 20, we're selling the whole entire company, because I'd like to retire and play golf every day at some point.
How many kids, Gavin?
2. Just my second son, he just had his first birthday just a couple weeks ago. So I nothing to your level, but we're working
my
on it.
exit strategy is I have 8 kids, right? That is, conveniently, your business is named Legacy Furniture, right?
Yes.
Like, your goal isn't to have the legacy of your kids running the business. My goal is that, let's say retail survives in its current form, is that, I don't know, I get 50% of my kids in the business, because college wasn't for you, right?
Correct.
So college wasn't for me. I graduated twice, 3 times. So I got my associates, my bachelor's, and my master's.
That's awesome.
But only because, the bachelor's and master's, because I went to the military and the military paid for it. And, the way I looked at it is part of what I signed up for. They owed me, so I had to capitalize and get all my money's worth.
Absolutely.
But I hate formal education, right? It is literally, high school was a bore for me. We played 2 different types of football. I played the real kind. You played the kickball kind.
I played that kind too. I don't worry about that. I played that for 3 out of the 4 years.
All right. Well, I never got on the communist turf. We the only pitch I ever played on was a rugby pitch, not a soccer pitch. So we'll, but with that, the only thing that kept me in high school was athletics, right? I was just, school bored the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And still does. And I still think anybody with enough time and money can get any degree they want. Not to take anything away from the really smart people out there. I thank God every day for doctors, and I don't thank God for lawyers, but I know they're necessary, especially being in business as long as I have.
Absolutely.
My friends over at Taylor Law, I'm very thankful for them. I get some crazy people every once in a while that I need to send them after, and it's nice to have a friend you can call. But
Oh yeah.
spending that 7 years in college and accumulating most likely that student debt is the dumbest thing anybody can ever do, when you can walk into business. And that's my kids. When I say, hey, you got 2 options, you want to go to college, one, you could be on a football scholarship, I'll allow you to play football. That's every high school
Dad's
kid's
dream, right?
right? It was my dream, right? I signed to to play college football and then shattered my leg playing rugby and
Ooh.
didn't get the opportunity. So if one of my boys can do it, or my girls played or gymnastics and stuff. So if they can, hey, take advantage of the free education, but don't pay for it. And then be a doctor or an engineer, right? Do something. I mean, and by doctor, I mean heart surgeon. Do something to push yourself beyond what average people do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like brain surgeon, heart surgeon. I mean, not to take anything away from the ER doc, but like be disciplined and be the best.
Absolutely. Yeah. Discipline is, I mean, in all facets of life is probably one of the most important things I've learned over the last couple of years.
Oh,
Working for someone.
it took me 4 years of joining the military
Yeah.
to try and learn discipline, right? And I still hate discipline.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. And it's the same thing with me. I mean, when you work for someone, they automatically require some form of discipline, and you just have to do it because you're getting a check. But then, like guys like us who are everyday grinding, we have to create our own discipline because, I mean, motivation falls off. I mean, it's not like you're getting a check every Friday. So it's without that
you don't get a check
motivation.
every Friday.
Well, I get them daily, but a lot of them end up going out into another check to somebody else. But the reality is as a business owner, an entrepreneur, if you've got your hands in many things, it's sometimes you just get so bogged down. It's tough to keep that motivation, like when you first open your first doors. I mean, when you open the first door, the first time you open those doors, the motivation is like a high. And if you could bottle it and sell it, I mean, you would be a billionaire. But it's difficult to keep that. And that's where, like, I love what you said about discipline is that's where the discipline comes in, and whether you're a heart surgeon or whether you're, a mattress store owner or, a beekeeper, you got to have discipline every single day. And that's what'll help keep you motivated as an entrepreneur.
One of the things you mentioned, as an employee, you show up for the paycheck, right? That enforces the discipline, right? You want the paycheck. As an employer, one of the things that pisses me off the most is when my employees are late.
Yeah,
Oh,
me
it
too.
drives me crazy. And I consistently seem to find employees that like to be 6 minutes late, right? I'm like, I'm consistently 2 hours early to work every day. I mean, that's just, I get in here and I don't need to be here, but I need to be here to
Absolutely.
get my mind right and plan things out and be ready for the day. I have to be early. And then they show up 6 minutes late. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, if you can be 6 minutes late every day, you can be 6 minutes early every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually have a saying, and this is through all my businesses, and especially at Legacy, is we do speed of the leader, speed of the team. So whether you're a regional manager for me, or you're a store manager, or even myself, we kind of fight to get there. Who's first? Whether it's conference calls or being at the store, it's speed of the leader, speed of the team. So we're very big on setting that tone, whether it's in the mornings or in the afternoon, whatever's going on. It's speed of the leader, speed of the team. It's one thing that helps us stay so successful.
So just to jump ahead a little bit, when
Sure.
you're looking at this fourth store, what were some things that led you to say, all right, we're ready to grow um, into another store? How far away is the store from your
So this
current
store's in
stores?
Florida, so it's much further away
Oh,
than Tennessee, like
so
8 hours.
this is like your pipe dream. You want to be back in Florida anyway.
Yeah,
You need
yeah.
you need a reason to spend some time in the sun.
I just moved back, actually. So my business partner is staying in Tennessee, and we have a regional manager in place. So those two are just killing it there, which is awesome because, like we spoke earlier, it's about like automation, and they, with the management team that we have in place in each store, is just running it automatically. So that frees me up to now expand the business down to Florida, which is where I want to be. we could have expanded anywhere. Could have stayed in Tennessee, could have went to, Ohio. But what we want to do is I want to get to Florida, like you mentioned. And we start looking at
I
different.
thought your skin was looking kind of sun-kissed.
Yeah.
You might have spent some time. I mean, we don't got that right now. It's like 14 degrees outside. So
Yeah, I'm sure the skies look about as gray as your sweatshirt. So for the rest of the few months,
yeah,
till
they're
spring.
pretty. I mean, today we got blue skies, but it is 12 degrees outside.
Yeah, no thanks. My wife's from Michigan, so we went up there for the holidays, and it was so cold. I looked at her, I said, I don't know why anybody would choose to live here. Like, that just doesn't make much sense to me. But I lived in Florida for most of my life, so I'm used to and accustomed to the weather here. So I love it personally. Like, give me 100 degrees, sunny, a lot of humidity. I love it. But when it comes to expanding to the fourth store, many people take more calculated risks with, trying to look at projections of their own business before they want to expand. And with me, I take more of a gambling opportunity. And that's not, I don't recommend that for many people. But one thing I've always done in my life is just gambled on myself. And I've
Right.
just said,
I tell people, I hear all the time that failure is the new success, is what people say. If you're not failing, you're not trying. And I said, well, I've never failed at anything because I've never quit.
exactly.
Like, I
And then
mean,
that's
failure isn't
pretty
an
much me.
option. And if you go into business and failure is an option, then you might as well just fail in the beginning
Yeah.
and then like go to work for somebody else, because I'm not here to fail.
Yeah. For me, it was one of those things like I either win, which I tend to do a lot, not to try and be, arrogant, but I either win or I learn. And I've learned a lot since opening my own business, but I've won a ton as well. And so taking that extra opportunity to open a fourth location is, once again, it's just a gamble. It's an opportunity at place. It's great measurables, like from demographics to lease space, because I don't own my locations, I lease them. We both know retail changes all the time. You could be in a small town, and within 5 years, the retail landscape has changed to the other side of town. So I don't like to put myself, and obviously I'm not acquiring an asset, but I don't like to lock myself into a place that I can't be, flexible. So I found a great location that we could lease at a very affordable rate. I know the area, that also helps, and it's one of those opportunities to say, hey, look, it's going to cost X. I have X. I can gamble on myself. I know what I need to do to be successful. It's one of those things, football or soccer, put me in, coach. Let me show you what I can do. And for me as an entrepreneur, I'm the GM, the coach, and the all-star. So I'm really just telling myself, go out there and make it happen.
So you mentioned demographic data.
Yeah.
What type of demographics are you looking for?
So I look for so we sell a lot of value to middle class. We sell, Ashley furniture. We sell cat napper. We don't have tons of high end. So we look for a lot of value. The nice part with a recession is most customers, which we're in a recession now, most customers will look for more value companies. So it actually helps me a lot because they're not buying the big ticketed items. So first thing I do is say, okay, where's a value town? What's the median income? What is the growth aspect of the company? Or I'm sorry, excuse me, of the county and the city? And what is that? What are their projections and where have they been in the last 5 years? So I look at that quite a bit. From last 5 years, and then I look at where the city or the county is planning to grow, what their expectations are of population growth, and then obviously, we break down the demographics from there and make a decision.
I mean, looking at Florida as a market anyway, and very similar march, right? So Idaho, we've picked up a ton of Californians, right? Florida tends to pick up a lot of New Yorkers,
Yeah, for sure.
East Coasters anyway, right? I mean,
I mean, there's a
favorable
lot of
tax.
Cali here. There's a lot of Midwesterns here that have been more recent. I mean, you can just look at the license plates on the highway. That tells you everything right there.
Yeah, but I mean, favorable tax situation, right?
Absolutely.
Favorable, I mean, business situation when we look at, open for business, in particular during the COVID period. I mean, in Florida, you would think would have capitalized on the growth over the decades, but I mean, they're still growing, which is pretty impressive. So,
Yeah, there's some towns
it's a great market to expand into if you're going into one, right?
absolutely. Yeah, there's some towns that I would have never thought would ever grow past what they are. It was an old boy mentality of like, we're going to keep this town small. And, we drive through the towns now and we're like, oh my gosh, they got a Target and a super Walmart. They never had that, and so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody has changed their mentality to say, why not us? Why not open, more big business in our town? Why not grow like these other areas? And one thing that we've done in Tennessee is, we're not in Nashville, we're not downtown Nashville or, within a throne's throw of Nashville. We're an hour plus outside of Nashville in most cases. So, we're in the suburbs. We're in the towns where you typically shop, where you buying a cup of coffee before you drive 45 minutes to work. So that's one of the things that we look at here in Florida and say, okay, can we replicate that same success and model here in Florida? And the obvious answer is yes, for sure. So that's what we're looking at.
And typically cheaper real estate, right? I mean, that's the
Florida's crazy. It's way. I mean, I thought it was pretty inexpensive coming in, and it, in general in the United States, it started in the West Coast and it's leaked out to the East Coast.
But small town Florida versus Miami.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Really?
It's funny. I had a broker for a little bit and he was like, man, these prices are like $5 per square cheaper than Miami. And we're in Central Florida. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't, it's just the growth here is insane. The last probably 6 to 8 months, we've seen huge dips in real estate, whether that's actual purchase of assets or leasing. And it seems like it's barely even touched Florida. I mean, you see a couple price drops here and there, but it's nothing like what has happened with the rest of the country. That boom of real estate is really kind of simmered out, except for Florida. It's crazy here. So, it's tough to find a good deal, but the one nice thing is you do have, natives who understand that it's not going to last forever. You work with these people and you give them, you tell them about your story, you tell them about who you are, and 9 times out of 10, these other brokers or landlords will listen to you and they'll understand that, hey, look, this isn't going to last forever. Let's sign the lease. Let's make it happen.
Give me 3 keys to lease negotiation.
So one thing would be probably it's a lot like a sale. And that would be to be one-on-one and the same level as the broker or the landlord, whoever you're talking to. It's a partnership, realistically. I mean, a lot of landlords and brokers look at your business as if it's going to be their own in their buildings. So understand that it's going to be a partnership with your landlord and you need to have a good relationship with them. If you don't, you're probably going to struggle with them. They're going to stick their heels in the dirt and they're not going to want to move. So when you're negotiating them, if you have that good relationship with them, if you have established that you're not a bad person and you're going to work with them, they'll work with you. That's one of the big ones. Number two is prioritize what you want, because I've seen this happen with some of my friends.
Well, you cut out on me. And that is the downfall of doing a live show.
My back.
Oh, there you go.
Can
You're
you hear
back.
me?
I can hear
All
you
right.
now.
Awesome.
So back to number two. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. So back to number two is be realistic with yourself on things that you need and want. A lot of times people want the landlords to bend over backwards. You're like, hey, I'm giving you $5,000 or 10 grand a month or $3,000 or whatever your lease amount is. You should be doing X, Y, and Z for me before I sign this lease. And the reality is these people are 9 times out of 10 an investor. They don't really care too much about the space. They just want someone in there cutting a check to them. So be realistic on your expectation of what you want done. If you want things done, it's going to cost you more money. If you want a cheaper lease, then you better be able to put the sweat equity in before you sign that lease, or when the turnover is. So be realistic about that. And then number 3 on lease negotiations, you have to, and this is maybe not necessarily on negotiations, but more about trying to find the right spot, would be to whether you want to invest more money in advertising or lease space. And you have to kind of negotiate with yourself on what you'd rather spend money on, because it's going to be one of the two. You're going to get a great location where you're going to get tons of foot traffic in, and you're not going to need to advertise as much, or you're going to have a building or area off the beaten path, and you're going to have to advertise a ton. So you really have to negotiate with yourself on what is the best practice for your business. And there's a lot of people out there that are in warehouses, and they're like, 3/4 of a mile off the main strip, and they're successful and they kill it. And that's great, but they're probably having to advertise a ton because no one knows they're there. Or you may be right in a beautiful shopping center and you're absolutely crushing it, and you don't barely have to advertise $1. So you're going to have to look at what's the best practice for your business. But the worst thing you can do is be in an okay spot and spend a ton of money on both, because that will just eat your business alive.
I've taken both strategies over the years. I've been in, if we could go with a Z location, I've been in Z locations, right? And and there's some benefit to Z locations, because if you're in the bargain market, right? Nothing screams a bargain like a scary old warehouse does.
Absolutely.
And that helps your business, right? It's part of your story. And I'd say now I have a B location and a C location. And my B location, we don't have to advertise a ton, and we do pretty well. But that C location, even though it's located in a great side of town, good shopping center, doesn't have a ton of high visibility, because it's back from the road. The parking lot's so big. It's in an old Kmart shopping center.
Yeah, those parking lots are massive.
So huge parking lot, right? So we're really far back from the road. The city laws, you can't cut down trees here. Like for every tree you cut down, you have to plant another one.
Oh, geez.
So so the trees are kind of blocking the frontage. I probably would reevaluate that location if I had to choose today. But it's gaining traction too. But you're right. I just have to spend more money to drive traffic to that store, to bring awareness, because you're not going to notice it from from the road. Even though it's a high traffic road, you just don't see it as well.
Yeah, we have a location, no trees, thankfully, but we have a location with a big parking lot as well. And they run into similar issues to that. And so we spend a little bit more on advertising there. But one of the big things is like we make jokes about it when we advertise, and so that helps with a little bit of like brand recognition, brand awareness. Hey, don't forget about us back here. We're behind X, Y, and Z, and people are like, oh yeah, I know where X, Y, and Z is, and then they find us from there. So it just helps a little bit once we've got our message out, but it definitely hurts the foot traffic overall. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And we've done it both ways. Like you said, we've invested sweat equity, right? I mean, when I took this location 4 years ago, I took it and I took it as is, right? Because I was able to negotiate a super cheap square footage. I said, all right, I'll take it. So, I mean, we did all the paint, we did everything ourselves. I regret not doing the flooring. Now that we're 5 years in, or 4.5, we're about to negotiate a renewal, and that's definitely in my considerations.
And I'm sure you've been a great tenant. So that's, you have that as a bargaining chip now. It's tough when, you're not already in there. It's tough to bargain. It's tough to ask for things. But now that you're in there, they're comfortable in getting those checks. They'll invest a little bit in you, so.
Well, and then our other location, we negotiated up front, right? I took their money. The space needed a lot of work. I couldn't have taken it as is. The space just, it's an old Radio Shack location. So,
how big is that? Because I'm curious on their sizes.
That one's we're under 3,000 square feet there.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So
some are big, so that's why I was curious, because I've seen some that are like 10,000. And I've seen when they're like,
I mean, that's like the shopping center where everything died, right? I mean,
gotcha.
Shopko went out of business, or Kmart. Kmart went out of business. I can't remember. Was it a Shopko or a Kmart? One of those two. I think it was Shopko. So Shopko went out of business over there. Radio Shack, of course. So that place had been empty for 7 years. Oof. When I went into it, right? So it needed a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we did most of the work, but they put up the money because, it needed a roll-up door. I mean, there were certain things that you can't operate without, right?
For sure. Well, I mean, sometimes you can just make do,
Yeah,
it makes things more difficult, but yeah, for sure.
I mean, once you get spoiled, though,
Absolutely.
once you know what you want, you tend to lean that way all the time. You're like, oh, I remember how long it took me to get here. Like, I need to get, like, I just want to start there. Right? Like, I mean, I started in the shittiest of locations, and I mean, it was garbage. And now I'm in, I'm spoiled. I got, 7,000 square foot showroom, and I mean, it's a nice
That's big
spot.
time for mattress, 7,000. That's big.
I got a lot of mattresses.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like the space. So now every time I look at a space, I'm like, all right, I'm comparing it to this one. Like, oh, I want certain things. Granted, I did go smaller because I was experimenting with a smaller footprint in the new store. So we'll see how that one plays out. So demographics, lease negotiation. What about competition? We haven't talked about competition yet.
There's always competition. I mean, I love it. I love competition. I love being near competition because the way that we have our business, the way that we train our employees, the way that we put such a strong focus on that and our customer service, it's hard for people to compete with who we are. When we walk into the big box guys, and let's just use Ashley for an example. Typically, you get the business card and say, hey, look around. My name's John Smith. Let me know when you're ready. And that's just not how we do it at Legacy. I've never done it that way. I've never sold that way. I've never created relationships that way. And so I love being near them because they drive tons of traffic right by your location every day. And so when they do that, they're going to stop by. Customers are curious, and that is your opportunity to win. You know, it's every time there's competition, it's more opportunity. It's more dollars in advertising for you. It's more opportunity for you to close their customers. So I look for similar businesses, and I try to put a location as close as I possibly can to them. Doesn't always work out in my favor, but 9 times out of 10, I usually win with being close to someone. Our first location in Columbia is actually right next to a Badcock, and we carry a lot of similar items that Badcock does, but we crush their margins, and we crush their prices, we crush everything. So we literally have customers on the daily walk in the same plaza from Badcock to us, and I mean, I've got it $300 cheaper, $200 cheaper. And I say, yeah, we'll make it happen. I go, great. And they buy from us. So I love the competition. Mom and pop stores, obviously they have a similar mindset and mentality that I do. So it is a little bit more difficult to fight against them. But I tell customers all the time, like, look, you guys, other mom and pop stores, they're like my cousin. I'm not going to talk bad about them. I'm not going to put them down. I'm going to give you my best opportunity, and, like you said earlier, take it or leave it kind of deal,
I like being near competition too, because I've got I'm trying to think of how many major competitors I got. Some big boys just within a half mile of me anyway. And like when somebody comes from one of them, I'll just say, when somebody comes from Mattress Firm into my store, like that's the best customer. I had dinner with the CEO of Mattress Firm, and I told him that, and he said, well, I'm going to open 20 more mattress firms in your town. And I said, well, that didn't work out for you last time because there used to be 20 and you went bankrupt. But no, it was, and he said, well, I'm sure my guys feel the same way. Like, I mean, if they do, they're not getting as many opportunities. Maybe they're getting more.
It's
I
crazy.
just don't have that many people walk, and I definitely don't have anybody walk that has been there first.
And with our expertise and knowledge about not just certain select mattresses, but all of the mattresses, and you and I, we've gone to these plants and actually have seen them been made, and we have this, extensive knowledge. We can be a beacon of information to the customer, where although they're highly trained at Mattress Firm, I mean, when they go there, they don't know how to sell or use that information like we do. And I've literally told customers like, hey, look, if you don't buy from me, I won't be offended. But let me at least give you the educational knowledge. You can school up these other guys if you're going to shop, my prices around. And I'd say 7 out of 10 customers don't even go to the other guys. They just go ahead and buy from me. But if they do leave, I've had them come right back. And I don't do B-backs. I hate that. My rule is 9 out of 10 don't come back.
The B-back train stops here frequently.
Yeah.
I mean, I had one yesterday. The guy said, look, we actually didn't come in to buy a mattress. We just came in to get educated.
Yeah.
We're educated. Now we're ready to buy, but let me go home and process.
Yeah.
Right. And then as he was walking out the door, he said, don't worry, we're not buying online and we're not going anywhere else.
Yeah. So I've never had the objection of the online buy. But like I said, most customers, they leave, or they're about to leave, so educated that they primarily just end up making the purchase with us. But if they end up leaving, I'd say majority of those educated customers end up coming back. For one, we have better pricing, and two, we've already built such a rapport with these customers and educating them that when they walk into these other stores, kind of like I was just mentioning with the Ashley and the business card situation, they don't buy from them. They kind of just say, wow, thanks for your time, and they leave. I mean, there's a pretty good value furniture mattress store in the same town of one of the stores I have in Tennessee, and I don't want to name their name or anything, and they're great. I mean, they have great pricing, and I know the owner is very nice. But I literally told the lady, I was like, hey, you walk in, you go to the right, it's in the back, you'll see them right there. And she's like, oh, I was like, well, yeah, of course, I shop my competition. And she literally comes back, she's like, you weren't kidding. She's like, and not only that, but you are well more educated and versed than them. She's like, when you said beacon of knowledge, you weren't joking. And I was like, I try to tell you. And then, a $2,800 mattress later, they're super happy. And, they sent us a Christmas card. So, we build that rapport with them. And that just really changes the difference between shopping big box and shopping with us.
So I'm going to move on to a new subject
Sure.
here, because I know your background pretty well. And I know in expansion, some of the difficult things that we deal with as business owners. Well, the number one thing we deal with is hiring.
Yeah.
How do you find success in hiring, especially when you're growing, right? When you're expanding to a new market? I mean, what are you doing to capture those people that are able to educate the customer and close the deal?
So I don't want to give out all my secrets, but I guess I'll give a couple. Number one is recruitment.
Hey, let me jump in real quick.
Sure.
I'll tell you a quick thing about it. One thing I learned when I was in the financial services business. I had a big office. I rented it out to other people that did the exact same thing as me, right? They followed me around on a daily basis trying to figure out what I was doing. But you can count on one thing. You can give away all the secrets on the planet. You cannot teach execution, right?
Absolutely. So execution's a key word for sure.
There are plenty of books out there that will teach you anything you want to learn, but there are very few people that execute it successfully.
Well, I say it more jokingly. I wasn't,
All right.
There's no secrets to what I do, but number one is
There's
recruitment.
No secrets to life, right?
Right.
It really is.
Well, there might be a couple out there, but I haven't figured them out.
My grandma's 90. I try and get them from her all the time. There's no secret.
So number one's recruitment. Recruiting an employee is 10 out of 10 better than hiring on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or any of those things. I mean, you've built a rapport with this person. You've promised them XYZ, probably. You've seen something in them that you want them to come work for you. It's not like you just rode through McDonald's and you're like, hey, do you want to work for me? Typically, when I say recruitment, you've seen this person in action, regardless of the industry that they're in. Let's say they're a server, and you see that the way that they handle themselves with maybe a large party, maybe your table, maybe the way that they presented things, and you say, wow, if they did that for me, they would make X, like they would kill it. So I look at it that way, and immediately it's game on. It's a sale. So I'm immediately selling that person on why my opportunity for them is better than what they're currently doing. So recruitment is absolutely huge. In fact, when I worked for the big box retailer, I was in charge of 5-6 different states. And one of the ways that I helped grow that company in my own area was, and even the company, was through recruitment. Go out to dinner, get my tires changed, whatever it was. I was looking for my next person. And it doesn't stop. The one thing with hiring is a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, everybody, that I guess would be number 2, is don't stop hiring. The problem that people say is, well, I got 2 people, I don't need anybody else. Okay, well, if Tom Brady, maybe a few years ago, Tom Brady, but if Tom Brady is walking onto my practice field and I'm like, hey, no, I already got 2 other quarterbacks, like I should be fired immediately, because your next best person is literally out there. Your weakest link in your chain, if they're $1 million shipper for you, well, you got a dang good team. You can't sit here and be comfortable with your staff. You have to, just like any sports team, you have to be looking for the next best thing. And that's just business, just like in the NFL, just like in soccer, just like in, you name it, NBA. I mean, they're looking for the next superstar, and so am I. So I don't stop. My store could be too many people in there, and I'm going to continually look for the next superstar. And then the last thing is when you're hiring someone, I never look at their resume. I absolutely despise this process. Is when you're hiring, is people automatically say, well, let me look at their resume. It drives me nuts. I used to have managers who would try to hire, and I would literally walk up to them and I say, what are we doing for interviews today? Well, and they'd take the stack of paper and they go, well, I have all these resumes I need to go through. I said, for what? I'd take those and I'd literally throw them out. And they're like, you're crazy. I gotta see who this. I said, why? Because if I walked in the door, would you hire me? Like, of course I'd hire you. I'm like, okay, but if you looked at my resume prior, you'd have never hired me. So I tell everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur today, whether you're, I don't know, a store manager, whatever industry you're in, you hire on personality, period. Because you can train anybody to do anything. People are literally animals, and animals can be trained, but your personality cannot be trained. Being on time cannot be trained. You can discipline people to get on time, but that's a lot of work and a lot of energy. So if someone's on time and they have a good look about them, they're presentable. Okay. I don't care if they even have teeth, as long as they present themselves well. Okay. And they have a great personality.
You're doing business in the South if you're counting their teeth.
Well, technically I am. But the difference is a personality, because the personality is the difference of whether that customer is getting closed or whether they're walking. And I can teach them different things on how to sell, but I can't teach them how to be their personality be good and infectious, right? An infectious personality is going to take that sale from 0 to hero really quick. So I look for the people with that infectious personality that can present themselves well and that can show up on time. They can do those 3 things, they're almost guaranteed for a job. And then once again, I just continually work on having training. For one, we have a sales training program, of course. We focus on that. You got to follow that program. It's guaranteed to work. It worked for me. It worked for, countless other people. And, from there, it's looking for the next best person all the time.
So if you were going to open store number 5 today,
yeah,
what's the first thing you're looking at? Or do you
cost. I mean, I do have 5, 6, 7 already lined up. I don't want to sound like LeBron James, like 5, 6, 7. No, I don't want to do that. But it's cost, an opportunity. Is the building in an opportunistic area that I look for, right? Is it a rising, growing area? Is it in a retail area that can thrive and continue to thrive for the next 5 years or so? And is the cost cheap enough? We all know what the cost is to furnish the place, but what's the cost of that lease space? Because that right now is more crucial than anything else. Who knows where retail is going to be in the next 5, 10 years with, places like Amazon and whatnot. But
think about long-term versus short-term leases.
Short-term leases, you lose your bargaining chips. Long-term leases, you have the bargaining chip. So I love poker, and I like to have a lot of chips because I can bully people, right? If you're bullying someone on the card table, you're going to constantly get those antes or little bets. So I like to have as many chips as possible. So what can I continue to put in my favor? Like, am I taking a space as is? Can I do a longer term or middle term lease? I don't like anything personally over 5 years because as we said earlier, you don't know where the landscape of retail is going to be in 5 years. Things change so dramatically, and businesses go in and out left and right. You don't want to be the only person stuck at the end cap of a mall that, who shops at malls any day anymore, So it's
I do. It's the only place the Apple store is.
Well, you're lucky because, malls around me, they're dead. I mean, literally they're dead. So.
Well, they're dead here most of the time, but not the Apple store.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we have ideas of where we want to put the next ones. We're working on one. We're working on number 5 currently. Obviously there's tons of different, lease negotiations can take forever, or they can be really, really short and quick depending on the landlord. So we've got a great landlord for this number 5. So hopefully it goes smoothly and quickly. But yeah, we already have number 5 in the works.
So you mentioned one other key factor, right? Cost.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, business costs money.
Yes.
If we're going to use this as the parting segue here,
Sure.
How do we raise money? What are some things, some creative ways to get capital that you've seen or used? And I mean, every business owner wants to know, how do I get money? How do I get the loan? How do I, we can expand if only we can get so much dollars, right?
Yeah.
Or are you guys self-funding and you're building your business to the point where, hey, we're making this much, we're going to pull this much aside and we're going to invest it into store number 5?
Yeah. So when we made the conscious decision to say, hey, we want to grow, it's what can we live on, right? And obviously I kind of mentioned it a couple different times throughout this podcast was, I have other things, in the fire. So other sticks in the fire that make me some money. So I don't need a ton of cash from legacy to live on, which is great. That helps for me to reinvest the money back into the business to grow. But I guess to answer the question, the number one reason or the number one way is sales, right? So if you're not a good salesperson, you probably aren't going to have a great business, or even if your business is great, it's not going to be very big. So if you want to continually grow your company, you have to be a great salesman first and foremost, or saleswoman, let's say salesperson. Or
partner with somebody that is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or partner with someone that can drive dollars to your bank account. Next, obviously, there's tons of different loans you can take out. You just got to remember that every loan that you take is just going to restrict your cash flow. It's super, super crucial that whether you're starting a business or you're growing your business, you have to keep the cash flow going so that you can reinvest or add new product in or whatever it is. We learned the hard way for sure. We grew 3 locations in a matter of 5 or 6 months when we first opened. And it was like, okay, we restricted our cash flow quick. So, a lot of cash flow, which ultimately helped us grow to the 3 locations and now to 4 and hopefully 5 and 6 in the near future here. So friends and family, it's so cliche. And, it's the first thing you Google when you're like, hey, how do I get funding to open a business? And it's like, well, do an SBA loan. And then if that doesn't work, then, go to this or that, or your family members. It's like, but it's true. I mean, I never did that personally. I've never asked my family for literally anything, not even a bottle of water. That's just how I was raised. You just don't ask family and friends for anything. But if you have family members who are successful and they want to see you successful, it's not a bad way to go. I mean, they're there to help. So
I'm with you. I've never, I started I sold a business to start this business, right?
Yeah. There you go.
I sold my house and my old business and parlayed that into a new
What was
business.
your old business?
So I was financial services.
Oh,
So
yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
I was an insurance and financial planner.
Yeah, which usually, you find on the flip side, someone's got a retail store, they sell that to go be a financial planner.
You know, and I was glad that I was younger when I did it. That business, I mean, it will suck the life out of you quickly. I mean, I don't know that I could do it at 50. I don't even know that I could do it today. I mean, there was a lot of guys. I sold the business to a guy who was looking to sit in a chair all day, and
Yeah.
he's still sitting in my chair at my desk, probably on the lease that I negotiated, and I set him up fat and living off my residuals. But I worked 18-hour days, put 50,000 miles on my car in 6 months, and like I wore my ass out. So
And, and this is really for anybody that watches this or anybody thinking about being an entrepreneur or opening their own business. I mean, you're going to have to. You're going to have to, no matter what industry you get into, go in with the worst case scenario, like, hey, I'm going to have to run this business. I'm going to have to do the X, Y, and Z. I'm going to have to clean toilets. I'm going to have to work from sun up to
I
sundown.
still do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
I'm still the toilet cleaner around here.
Yeah. And then that doesn't change. I mean, I've got a ton of employees underneath me. And like I said earlier, I mean, I'm their first one there. And, I got the open sign on, doors open. They're like, well, we don't open for another 2 hours. I was like, okay, but I'm open now. I'm open today. Customer walks in, I'm closing them down.
I'm with you. Yeah. As soon as I get in, I turn on the lights and the
Absolutely.
open sign because, hey, I don't care if the customer's waiting till our normal store hours. There's a chance somebody might come by.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I even thought about even opening the hours earlier because of how many customers I would get in. They're walking in at 9:30, 10 o'clock, an older couple. And, here comes my manager at, 10:15. And they're like, oh, we already got, 2,700 to the bank. I'm like, heck yeah, we do. I don't play around. And so, anybody watching this, like I said, go in to any business knowing that you're going to have to grind 80 to 100 hours a week so you don't have to go work 40 for someone else. And if you have that mentality when you're going into it, it'll make you way more successful. And then you'll be able to relax maybe 5 or 10 years later.
We're 8 years, and I'm thinking, I'm trying to tell my wife, like, I mean, we're expanding, right? I bought out another business recently.
Nice.
Different type of business altogether because I'm trying to diversify,
Congratulations.
trying to do some Gavin stuff. And then taking on a new role with manufacturers. But I'm like, man, I feel like I need to work, knowing that the economy is kind of in the down spiral right now. Like, I feel like I need to double down, right? Like, I need to go get it.
I mean, if you don't do it now, when are you ever going to do it? I mean, my mom's told me that since day one. Whether that's working out or whether that's taking a risk or opportunity or anything in life. She's like, well, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? You're going to do it when you're married with 3 kids or whatever. So you're going to do it when you're, have 12 businesses. Like, when are you going to do it? If you don't do it now, you'll never do it. And so I've kind of kept that in my back pocket and pretty close to the chest. And I've always tried to live by that. Like, well, why not me? And why not now? So hence why we open up Legacy.
There's no excuse for not doing it. Right. I mean,
right.
I've got 8 kids, 2 stores, and I bought another business because, I mean, what else am I going to do? Right. Like,
literally.
I mean, I live and breathe being in business and helping people in business. So, I like writing checks more than I like Well, I like cashing them a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
when you wake up and your bank account's much bigger than it was on Friday, it feels really good. But typically by Tuesday, those checks are out, and you're like, oh, let me change the ledger here because I know that number's about to come back down.
Yeah. Gavin,
the one nice thing though with that is just, when it's going to a good purpose, and when we talked about recruitment, when you're hiring someone who needs that opportunity, I look for a lot of people that aren't college educated like myself. So when I'm writing the checks to them, it's a feel good moment for sure, because they're actually, I've lived up to what I told them, what I sold them, and they're creating a life for themselves now because we as a team went and killed it together over the weekend or whatever day it was. So writing those checks do feel good. Yeah, I will say that they do feel good.
And they feel better when you have money in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely don't want to write checks and then there's nothing in there.
Yeah. Gavin, I appreciate you
Sure.
joining me for episode 2 of Outlaw Entrepreneur and stepping up and talking about this growth and expansion. I wish you the best of luck, my friend.
Thank you. You as well. And I appreciate you having me on. I'm super excited when you announced that you were having it. I was like, oh man, I hope I get an invite. So I appreciate the invite, and obviously love coming on. Anytime you need me, just give me a holler.
All right, man. Have a great day.
All right, you too. See ya.
To your guns, son, make me proud. Don't never back up, don't never back down. Stand your ground and always tell it like it is. Yeah, this life's gonna be real damn tough. You take them scars and you call that bluff. Don't let me catch you fitting in, 'cause everyone's an outlaw until it's time to do outlaw shit.
Welcome to Outlaw Entrepreneur